Hello, welcome back to Spellbound. I'm BJ the Book Witch, and this is my highly themed summer TBR. So here's the thing about me, I hate the summer. I do, and I know that I'm in the minority here, but I'm also in Florida. It's not that I'm not a sunny person. I can be joyous and stuff. But it's just the whole vibe of it all. It's hot and endless, and it's in August, which is like the 4 o'clock of the year. Okay, so why am I drinking the haterade on summer? It is May 1st. I know. No, I am preparing for my inevitable summer reading slump. As soon as the weather here turns unnaturally warm, right about this time, I always hit about a 3 to 4 month long reading slump. And it sucks. So this year I am planning ahead, and I have prepared a highly themed 4-month-long summer TBR to help keep me reading and keep me engaged through those long, lazy summer days. In May, I'll be reading books exclusively about fairies. In June, I'll be reading books about mermaids. In July, I'll be reading books that feature pirates. And in August, I will be reading exclusively Peter Pan retellings. These books cross all kinds of genres, fiction, YA, romance, nonfiction, but they still fit each theme for the month. So each month I'll have a total list of hopeful TBRs for that month within each theme, as well as a few honorable mentions of some of my favorites if you also want to read along. So let's start with May. In May, I'll be reading books about fairies, and I'll be starting with the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. Believe it or not, I've never actually read this series before. The other book on this list is These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. This one is also about fairies, and the sequel, These Twisted Bonds, will be released in July. So overall, that's 6 on my list for May, 5 of which are coming from the ACOTAR series or A Court of Thorns and Roses. That's pretty average as far as a total number of books, but the ACOTAR series is pretty chunky, so we'll see. In the event that you also want to read about fairies, I have my honorable mentions list. I highly recommend the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black, or really any of her books set in Elfhame. Actually, I really just recommend anything by Holly Black. She also has another new book coming out, The Book of Night, and it comes out this month, but I don't believe that it's about fairies, so I don't think I'll be picking it up until the fall. So that's May. Depending on time, I may do a fairy-themed video at some point during the month, or may just talk about why mythology in general is just having a moment right now in the collective. In June, I'll be reading about mermaids. Mermaids are also having a moment right now, and I can't wait to capitalize on it. The Seafarer's Kiss by Julia Ember. This is the classic mermaid tale about Ursel, who saves a human, specifically a maiden, from drowning. But when that is discovered, she is subject to punishment from her own kind. So she seeks out the aid of Loki. But in true trickster fashion, his deal is not all that appeared, and she finds herself banished from her home. In order to escape the barren seas and find her way back to the human that she loves, Ursel must learn how to outsmart the god of lies. A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. This is a modern fantasy about black sirens who must remain silent and anonymous for their own safety. But during a black siren murder trial, Tavia lets her voice sing out at the worst possible moment. So this book is about the sisterhood of 2 best friends in a day when racism and sexism floats so closely to the surface of our own culture. Coral by Sarah Ella. Now this one is a Little Mermaid retelling, I believe, and there will be a lot of those. But this is about Coral, a mermaid who has grown up completely differently from her sisters because they believe that she has been inflicted with the worst disease of all, human emotions. So this is a coming-of-age story with multiple POVs, both human and mermaidy. Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. This looks like an incredible fantasy about a mermaid goddess who's tasked with ferrying souls lost at sea into the afterlife. But when she watches a boy fall overboard, she does the unthinkable and saves his life. So Simi must travel to the Supreme Creator to bargain for her life, and there she discovers a much larger plot against humanity. All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slatter. Honestly, I don't know if I could do a better job describing this book than Amazon does. A spellbinding tale of dark family secrets, magic, and witches, and creatures of myth in the sea, of strong women and the men who seek to control them. A feminist gothic story about mermaid folklore? Pumped. Song of the Current by Sara Tolcser. This is about Caro, who wishes to be a ferryman, like her father and her grandmother before her, but the river god has yet to speak her name. When pirates set upon Caro, she is taken on an adventure that leads beyond a destiny that she always assumed. Songs from the Deep by Kelly Powell. A girl searches for a killer on an island where deadly sirens lurk beneath the surface in this, quote, twisty, atmospheric story that grips readers like a siren song. Deep Light by Frances Hardinge. This book is marketed as a mix between 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Frankenstein. And it's about a dude named Hark who finds the still-beating heart of a deity at the bottom of the ocean. Hark intends to use the heart to save the life of his best friend Jelt. But with the power of the heart, Jelt begins to turn into something else entirely. Mermaid Moon by Susann Cokal. Santa is a mermaid, but on the night of her birth, the sea witch cast a curse that made Santa's mother forget who and what she is. As Santa comes of age, she is determined to walk among the humans and find her mother. But to do that, she'll first have to apprentice to the sea witch and then set out on a dangerous quest. All the Stars and Teeth and All the Tides of Fate duology by Adalyn Grace. This duology follows Princess Amora as she teams up with an outcast pirate named Bastian to help prove that she has the power to be High Animancer, or the wielder of dangerous soul magic. For an honorable mention, in the event that you would also like to read a book about mermaids, I recommend Mermaid by Carolyn Turgeon. This is a really beautiful retelling of The Little Mermaid, while leaning more into the mythology and the beauty of the writing without trying to recreate a new epic or fantastical quest from the original story. So that's June. And once again, I would really love to do a video that explores more of the classic mermaid plot trope, and specifically the role that voice and expressing your voice plays within those stories. You know, right now, a lot of the mermaid stories coming out are written by Black authors, BIPOC authors, and other marginalized voices. So I'd really love to lean into that and explore that a little bit more through a video. But that is a pretty hefty TBR, so we'll just see how the month of June plays out. In July, I'll be reading books about pirates. Now, I love pirates. I love pirates probably more than any other type of character. More than fairies, mermaids, unicorns, possibly even more than witches. And I love witches, which checks out. For June's TBR, I'm looking at Daughter of the Deep by Lina C. Amarego. Not to be confused by the book with the same title by Rick Riordan. This one features a marriage of convenience trope in which Kira must marry her father's alleged killer, a sea snake Ronin, or curse her family to the deep. This one looks like it also has a couple of elements of mystery in here, maybe a curse or two, and plenty of sea mythology. The Assassin's The Assassin's Curse by Anna Rose Clarke. This book features an arranged marriage, but Anana of the Tamaro abandons her ship when her parents agree to marry her off to an allying pirate clan, and then sends an assassin after her. To be honest, it will be hard to beat the assassin moment from the Remnant Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson, but let's give it a shot. Viper by Bex Hogan. This one is part of a series called Isles of Storm and Sorrow, which sounds neat, if tropey. But in this one, we're following Mary Ann, who has been training all of her life to be the next Viper, which sounds like a musketeer-like position to protect the king and all of the citizens of the 12 Isles. But in order to do that, she must defeat her father. According to Amazon, power, politics, and pirates collide in this epic fantasy trilogy for fans of Pirates of the Caribbean, which is me, so sign me up. Fable and Namesake by Adrienne Young. Now, I'm particularly pumped about this duology because it's basically an epic quest. A young girl is dumped on a remote island full of ruffians by her notorious seafaring father. As this girl comes of age, she sets out on a daring adventure to claim her rightful place on her father's crew. A coming-of-age epic quest set on the high seas? Say less. Black Hearts by Nicole Castroman. This is a reimagined origin story of one of the West's most infamous pirates of all time, Blackbeard. It's also an intense romance as well. The book's description uses the word smoldering, which is not a point in its favor, but it's not like I wasn't going to read a reimagined origin story of one of my favorite villains of all time. Crossbones by Kimberly Vale. Have you seen this cover? Incredible. I would buy this book for the cover alone. I would buy this book for the title alone, let's be honest. This one says, "The blood bell has rung, which signals the death of the Pirate King and the beginning of the trials, a heart-stopping competition in which the prize is the bone crown." Oh my god, a pirate competition plot. Tides of Mutiny by Rebecca Road. Okay, before we continue, I'm going to take another sip of Haterade and express that I really hate it when covers do this. This Jimmy Presents nonsense is slapped across the covers of some of my favorite books, and across all of Carrie Maniscalco's. And I understand that this is James Patterson's imprint of Little Brown and Company. But first of all, Jimmy, to the primary demographic of your imprint, your name matters little. So you're not doing anyone any favors by slapping your weird sunburst branding over the covers of these books, especially books written by women about strong female protagonists. If anything, it looks like you're desperately trying to stay relevant while clinging to the name and being carried and supported by the names of these women. And second of all, Rick Riordan is doing what you're trying to do, except he has a purpose and he's doing it better. I don't know why that got so personal. I don't know James Patterson. I also don't know Rick Riordan, but I do know that I really do hate when my books have that dumb upper vanity square. That square is specifically why I will not subscribe to Book of the Month. I think that Book of the Month is an excellent subscription and incredible product, but I just can't do it. Anyway, The Tides of Mutiny by Rebecca Road, but presented by Jimmy Patterson, is about a young girl who poses as a boy so she can join a pirate crew. I believe this one skews a lot younger, possibly even toward middle grade, but I love a good gender swap story, so sign me up. I've also got a couple of nonfiction books on this list as well. The Unbinding of Mary Read by Miriam McNamara. This book is based on the true story of Mary Read, who also dressed as a boy so that she could sail with Calico Jack and Anne Bonny, where she fell into love. She fell into it. This book is based on the true story of Mary Read, who also posed as a boy to sail with Calico Jack and Anne Bonny, with whom she fell deeply in love. Sapphic Story on the High Seas. Grace O'Malley, The Biography of Ireland's Pirate Queen by Anne Chambers. This one is basically exactly what it says. Also, I literally took this book out of my brother's hands the day that he first purchased it, and I have not given it back. Sorry, Chris, I will return it to you someday. The Strange Case of Jonathan Swift and the Real Long John Silver by Robert A. Prather. This one looks like it's a dive through literature to find clues or evidence of these characters' existence in real life. So there you go, that's 11 total books for my July list. Some honorable mentions in case you also want to read about pirates but none on this list piqued your interest. I highly recommend Daughter of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller. It is one of my favorite YA books of all time, just a good time with a good protagonist. You know, I get asked the question a lot that if I could go back and read any book again for the first time, what would it be? And I don't really have an answer or a good answer to that question because one of my favorite things about books is that they speak to us at all different ages and chapters of our own lives. So I would never want to go back and read anything again for the first time because then I'd lose out on all those connections. But I do often wish that I could read a book or have read a book a lot sooner than I did. And for me, the best example of this is Daughter of the Pirate King. I wish so badly that this book had been around when I was a younger reader. This is the ideal YA fantasy pirate mermaid adventure about a strong female protagonist that I wish I could have experienced and dreamed about when I was a lot younger. So yeah, highly recommend. The next honorable mention is one that I've mentioned so many times on this channel, and it is the very unfortunately named Pirates by Celia Reese. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It is quite literally falling apart. It is about a young woman who is sold into marriage basically to a plantation owner in Brazil. Once she gets there, she befriends an enslaved girl on the plantation, and the two run away and join the account. The plantation owner gives chase, and they set out on an incredible journey and adventure across the Caribbean. And of course, no books about pirates list could be complete without Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This book is the book. It is the standard. It is the standard of romantic literature, the standard of books about pirate adventures, the standard for how many inside jokes with my bestie J.M. Barrie can I cram into these pages. It's a lot. If you've never read it, this story is about a young Jim Hawkins who sets out on an adventure to find a mysterious rumored treasure island. When he hears Long John Silver talking about this mysterious island in his mom's pub, he is immediately captivated. Long John Silver is a notorious pirate and the only pirate against whom the legendary Captain Flint was ever afeared. So he steals away and tries to find the island of treasure for himself. So my favorite TV show of all time, even more than Lizzie McGuire, is Black Sails. This show originally premiered on Starz, but I think you can still watch it through Amazon Prime. But essentially, Black Sails is the precursor to Treasure Island. So Black Sails follows the original Captain Flint and how the island that is Treasure Island came to be, and that is where Captain Flint first meets a young Long John Silver. So it is an incredibly violent show, which I love, but also they take such good care of the original source material and the world that Robert Louis Stevenson created with care, reverence, and imagination without at all undermining it. So great show if you love pirates. So that is July, all about pirates. And I'm getting through August, which is by all counts the armpit of the year, by reading exclusively Peter Pan retellings. So for those of you who do not know, Peter Pan is my favorite story of all time. I have read multiple iterations of the original stage play, even before it was novelized as Peter and Wendy, and as far back as the original source text of The Little White Bird. My favorite edition of Peter Pan is the complete annotated works of Peter Pan because the footnotes are incredibly top-notch. But I am a Peter Pan purist. So while just a few minutes ago I was talking about and celebrating an adaptation or spinoff of Treasure Island, I have never welcomed or even entertained the concept of a spinoff, retelling, adaptation, or reimagining of Peter Pan in any form. That includes film and television as well. So Pan, Neverland, and Hook are big no's in my book. Yes, I know that that is an incredibly cold take, but the first line of this book and the first line of the stage directions are the first two sentences, all children grow up except one. So I cannot, in good literary conscience, abide by an entire film built upon the premise of Peter Pan all grown up. It didn't work for the Rugrats and it doesn't work for Peter Pan. That being said, the 2003 Universal Studios version, starring Jeremy Sumpter and Jason Isaacs in Peter Pan, is to me the gold version of Peter Pan adaptations, even more so than the 1953 Disney animated feature, and that is a hill I will die on. Moving on. Fast forward to a couple of years ago when I met some of my closest friends on a previous content team with Disney. It is there that I met my absolute Peter Pan kindred spirit, and she recommended and encouraged me to branch out and explore some Peter Pan retellings. So I'm doing that, and I'm dedicating an entire month to it. At the end of the month, I'll probably do some sort of ridiculous wrap-up with a completely biased rating scale, and I'm entitled to that. Or I may make a video on why Peter Pan as a concept is so appealing to millennials, specifically with regard to our arrested development and vanishing cultural milestones, but we'll see. Anyway, here's the TBR. Lost in the Neverwoods by Aidan Thomas. This book follows Wendy, a girl who got lost in the woods with her younger brothers 5 years ago. When she almost accidentally runs over a boy in the woods, Wendy decides it's time to confront her past and finally face whatever lies within these mysterious woods. Peter Darling by Austin Chant. This is a queer transgender retelling of Peter Pan, in which Pan returns to Neverland after almost a decade in the real world. Wendy Darling by A.C. Wise. This book is about Wendy all grown up with her daughter Jane. When Peter returns to Wendy's window and instead takes Jane with him to Neverland, Wendy gives chase after her daughter to finally face the darkness at the heart of the island. Tiger Lily by Jodi Lynn Anderson. This book is the story of Peter Pan told through the perspective of Tiger Lily and how her relationship with Peter changes once Wendy comes to the island. This specifically is the book that my Peter Pan kindred spirit recommended to me as she read it in a children's lit class in college. She is very nervous that I'm not going to like it, which is not a totally unfounded concern on her part. However, I am excited to give it a go. The Pan, the Hook, and the Croc by Jenny Hickman. Okay, so this series sounds a little sci-fi for me, but commitment is commitment. So this story is about a girl in the foster system who discovers just before her 18th birthday that she possesses the Never gene. And unless she wants to be taken into custody by the Humanitarian Organization for Order and Knowledge, or HOOK, then she must join the PAN, which I'm sure is another ridiculous acronym, and fly away to Neverland. But joining the PAN means that she must live within Neverland shadows forever. Lost Boy, The True Story of Captain Hook by Christina Henry. So Christina Henry also wrote a book called The Mermaid, and I didn't love it. She made it into a sort of sad captive P.T. Barnum zoo story. So I'm interested for this one, if skeptical, because I do want to see what she does to my favorite villain of all time, Captain James Hook. Never Never by Brianna R. Shrum. So this is another retelling from Hook's point of view and really focuses on how Pan steals children from other places. If it is garbage, it will get its due, but I'm not hating how a lot of these retellings are really painting Pan as the villain that he is. And they're not all like, but what if Peter Pan worked for NASA, you know? Unhooked by Lisa Maxwell. This one is about a girl named Gwendolyn whose mother believes that they're being hunted by monsters and fae. When she and her friend Olivia are kidnapped and taken to a mysterious island, she must decide where to place her trust. With the charming hero who talks of adventure, or with the captivating pirate who claims to keep her safe. Hooked by Emily McIntyre. This one is a dark contemporary romance containing mature themes, obviously, about a young boy who grows into a villain, and to make his enemy pay, he steals his little shadow. Straight On Till Morning by K.J. Sutton. This is a historical fantasy about Wendy Davenport, who is given an impossible task. Travel to Neverland and kill the mysterious Peter Pan, or her entire family will be ruined. So that's 12 books in August. So there you go. That's 4 months of themed TBR lists and conversation topics in between. I hope that you read along with me, and if you do, I hope you tell me which ones you like. So that's it from me. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you loved it, hit subscribe. And of course, there's always Instagram, where you can follow me as I try to tackle this highly themed fairy, mermaid, pirate, Peter Pan retelling summer TBR. Take care, and as always, happy reading!